Welcome to the Salt Strong Podcast, disrupting fishing entertainment as you know it. Prepare to laugh. Prepare to get to know fishing legends in a whole new and unfiltered way. And on occasion, you might even learn a thing or two about fishing. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
God does not play dice. Hey everybody, Joe Simons, like diamonds, back again, Salt Strong Unchurched. That quote, God does not play dice, he does not make mistakes, is actually from one of the most brilliant and famous scientists and inventors of all time. Can you guess who it is? If you said Albert Einstein, you would be right. And I finished reading this book. I'm trying to still hold all the pages that I want to talk about here. It's called God, the Science, the Evidence. It is very fascinating. My friend and fellow insider and unchurched listener, Johnny, had told me about it, and I read it. It is a beast of a book, hundreds and hundreds of pages, and it takes a science-based approach, because it was a lot to take in. It took me a while to read it just because it was very, very scientific, and really just proves how almost like science has now almost proved that God is real. And Albert Einstein, if you don't know his background, obviously he's Jewish, but he was very against this idea that the universe was created by a God and, you know, had some sort of real beginning. And went back on that. And so it was, you know, he, after all his studies and looking at all of the data and the science behind it, Albert Einstein himself came up with that quote. And he's like, man, he doesn't play dice. There's no way this thing could have been just randomly created. It's impossible. And to put it in perspective, the chance of our ecosystem, like us being alive and our bodies being able to function the way that they do and live in this kind of a perfect environment for the air to be just right, all these things to line up. Here is the chance of that happening. It's a point, you know, it's not like 0.01%. It's point, so the decimal, and then you have 122 zeros, and the first non-zero appears in the 123rd place. That's bonkers. So I'm going to repeat that. The chance of us being alive here in this day and time, in this universe, just by chance, that this somehow just all landed perfectly, from the way the plants grow, right? From the way the sun is there, the way that our whole ecosystem works pretty flawlessly, not just complete chaos and by chance. The chance of it is a decimal, and then 122 zeros, and the first non-zero appears in the 123rd place. That is crazy. So that's a chance of 1 in a billion, 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 billion of achieving the precisely right value. And meaning it still has to go 122 zeros and then a very specific like 14702 just to be perfect, the way that we can actually wake up and breathe and have everything working. That's bonkers. So here's some stuff I didn't know. This is eerie. Like, I learned a ton during this book. So when scientists back in, this would have been, you know, the 20s and 30s, started discovering that, hey, we were wrong about this. There is a God. And so this, you know, prior to that, it just was kind of believed in general in America and most of the countries that it was just kind of by chance. We didn't really know. There's a ton of wild ideas. And then this book talks about all of them, about what we kind of believed at different times. And Stalin, who obviously was not the best guy, he started getting wind of this, and he did not want that. I mean, he looked at himself as like a god, right? I mean, he did not want anyone to be bigger or more powerful than him, and so he had a whole campaign. It was a whole slogan essentially that they lived by, that there would be no more God by 1937. This was stuff that they were printing, that there would be no more God by 1937, and he killed every top scientist he could. Literally killed them. I mean, murdered them in public. This was, they wanted to shame anyone who was even going out there with any sort of proof that there was a God. He was that worried about it. Because think about it. If it was just some whack job who was saying, oh, there is a God and this whole universe was created by God, he wouldn't care. Like, oh, it's just that guy's crazy. But when the top scientists in the entire country, in the entire world, were saying, hey, I have science that proves this, there's no way this could have been done by chance. There has to be a God. And many of these were even what would be called atheists at the time, saying like, no, there's no way this just happened by chance. He killed every one of them. I'm going to read this one story. This is spooky. It was 1937, and this was one of the top. And this is a Nobel laureate. Like, this is one of the most esteemed people out there. He's working peacefully at home and was dragged away by officers right in front of his wife. She never saw him again. He was sentenced to death by the military collegium of the Supreme Court of the Soviet Union. This is not Stalin. This was a different one. And then Bronstein was shot in the back of the neck on February 18th, 1938. He was only 31 years old. And there's like 12 other stories. Dmitry Yuropkin, condemned and shot, 29 years old. Boris Numerov, deported, tortured, and shot. Essentially, all these scientists in Soviet Union and Russia and Germany, all of them. And the Nazis did this as well. Hitler was kind of the next one they talk about. They would literally just execute anyone who was saying anything that had to do with God creating the universe, because the proof was there and they wanted to shut it down. They burned all of their evidence. So Hitler in particular, anytime that they found a German like Einstein and a lot of his cronies that started really diving deep in this and using science to prove there was a God, and they didn't believe it. This was going against what they even believed, but they're like, well, hey, we kind of have to believe what science is telling us. Hitler would go in, burn their laboratories, burn all their studies, burn all their books, all their notes. I mean, really crazy. I wish we had a lot of this back. I'm not going to bore you with all the details. They go into everything you could possibly imagine. A lot of emphasis on the Big Bang Theory and just the fine tuning of the universe. Basically, they hit every objection that like an atheist would say, every single one, and show via science how that was not true. Really, really, really good. My favorite part is towards the very end of the book, and it's the story of Fatima. If you guys have heard this is a true story. It's been highly documented, and this was back in 1917. It was three little kids. These were shepherds watching over their flock. And they claimed that the Virgin Mary appeared and spoke to them and instructed them to return to the exact same place on the same hour on the 13th of each month for the next 5 months. And she was going to tell them things. And as you can imagine, these are three young kids who've got no power at all, meaning they're not from some wealthy family. These are just shepherds who have no money. They're super poor. You can see pictures of them and Google it. This whole Virgin Mary Fatima. And, they start telling, their friends and family and some of the people in the little village what they saw. And obviously everyone, laughed at them. And they kept going and meeting the Virgin Mary, like literally appeared to them. And these were three kids who were even like told that they were going to be beaten to death. I mean, they were getting some serious threats that, hey, you can't just go be making stuff up like this. And all three of them stuck with it. Like, no, I'm telling you, we saw this. And long story short, they ended up getting like over 1,000 people came to see this final event. The kids were talking to this Virgin Mary who was showing up at this exact spot in this field. And she says, all right, we'll bring everyone here at this exact day and time. And these kids did. This is pre, the news and the internet, obviously. This is, the 1917s. And I'm going to read what it said, but every single person, over 1,000 people, saw this. And what was wild, it started raining and people were like kind of giving up, saying, oh, nothing's going to happen. And all of a sudden it stops raining. In an instant, all of their clothes, everyone claims the same thing. There wasn't even one person who didn't, which is really, really odd. Even the people who were only there just to say these dumb kids, like they didn't, there's no Virgin Mary. None of this is real. They even said they were soaking wet. They didn't have big umbrellas and stuff back then. Imagine being poured on by rain. And in one instant, their clothes were dry. It literally was less than a minute. They said all of a sudden their clothes were completely dry and everyone's kind of confused. And then all of a sudden they start looking up and it looked like a snow globe spinning around like the entire earth. It seemed to zigzag and threatening like it was coming to the ground. Then all of a sudden, the object got close to us and reflected all the colors of a rainbow. Our faces were sometimes red, sometimes blue, sometimes yellow. Everyone was in terror. And then all of a sudden, it took about 10 minutes is what all the spectators claim, about 1,000 people. The sun returned to its place. The sun basically came down and started doing all these crazy things and then went up. And, they talked about the chance of this happening, obviously, is pretty slim. The chance of that many people hallucinating, it'd be one thing if like 6 or 7 people out of 1,000 saw it, but 100% of people that were there, and even people in a different village that weren't there on that exact field were seeing this and reporting like what it was. It's one of the most unexplainable things ever. And what's wild, I got goosebumps reading this whole story. This is the most in-depth one that I found out there. They obviously, for a 500+ page book on the science of God that took them a decade to write, they did their the research. But yeah, it's unexplainable. There's even some kind of artist renditions of what everyone explained. And there wasn't one person who didn't see this. That's the craziest thing. I literally got goosebumps by reading it, especially when, it was, from what these kids claimed, the Virgin Mary who told them to be that exact spot on that exact day and time. They did it. Everyone shows up. The mayor of the town's there, and no one believes, right? They're all just like, all right, we can finally put this thing to bed. That was their belief. And for all of them to see that and be just shaking in their pants from being soaking wet, all of a sudden, in an instant later, they're 100% dry and the sun looks like it's coming down on them and spinning everywhere. It's just bonkers. So anyhow, I'll leave you with that. If you ever have doubts, or if you have friends that have doubts, and especially if they have doubts because they're very science-based, there are a lot of, I'd say atheists who are very science-based. And even this book went to talk about that. A lot of these scientists that I mentioned earlier, even the Einsteins, were, even though he was Jewish, he didn't really believe in all this stuff. Like, I believe in some of it, but there's no way, God created this universe. And all of them, especially the ones who spent a lot of time researching it, all kept coming to the same conclusion. Even the atheist, which the majority of them, I think it said 60% of these, Nobel laureate scientists in the day were atheists. The majority of them were, because it's tough to have faith when you believe so much in science. And yet they all started changing their mind the more they researched it. They said it's impossible for all this to be by chance. There's no way. I'd rather take my chance and have a little bit of a faith, even though I know I can't back it 100% by science, because 100% would mean there would be no decimals. It would just be it. All right. But even though it's only 122 decimals of a zero before there's a real number. And then once again, after that, the numbers have to be super specific, like a 1, 4, 7, to even still make it perfect for us to live the way we are. Really, really wild. So if you have friends family, coworkers who really struggle with it, give them this. I think they'd like it. Especially if you're into science and want to see real research on all the rebuttals someone would have about why there's not God and Jesus. This is it. And they focus it more on God. That's obviously the title, God, the Science, the Evidence. But in the end, a little bit after that Fatima chapter, they talk about, Jesus as well. And even just the Jewish and the Hebrew, the people as a civilization that, they have this guy, Jesus, right, who, regardless of what you believe, it is kind of crazy. Once again, almost like the 0.00000 decimal of a chance of happening, that you have this guy who was born in, of a Virgin Mary, right, of basically two people that have no power, no authority. They're not, they're not important people. Like they're someone who would never make the news, let alone someone we'd be talking about, years or thousands of years later. And even with him, he didn't have an army. He had 12 disciples who were fishermen and just normal guys. That once again had no political power, had no religious power. He rode on a donkey. Never once did he, shoot a gun. They weren't armed. The whole thing is bonkers when you really think about it. And this book just spells out like all the things that you would have thought would have had to happen for us to be talking about this man, Jesus, and what he brought to the world this many years, decades, centuries later. Is that just by chance? Like it really, really is wild. When you really think about that. So anyhow, love this book. Thank you, Johnny, for recommending it, and just wanted to share some of those high-level notes. I got another book I'm really excited about. I had some more travel, even from last time. It was a short little trip, but I'm reading another book that kind of similar to what we talked about with Chris McAllister about your identity and finding just peace and happiness. Really, really, really interesting that I'm thoroughly enjoying. So probably stay tuned for another little book report. Other than that, hope you guys have an awesome day, an awesome week. Love you. And if you have any questions, thoughts, prayer requests, whatever, love hearing from you. Hit me up, joe@saltstrong.com, joe@saltstrong.com. Otherwise, I will talk to you on the next episode in the book, God, the Science, the Evidence, the Dawn of a Revolution. Go check it out. Peace.
'Cause fishing, it's in my soul. It was passed down to me from the days of old. To find us on the water, if there was a way. It's been said my papa, he wrote the book on catching big reds and 20-pound snook. I wish I knew all the things he knew today. For he's the reason why we are this way. And he put fish in our soul.